Hi everyone, welcome to another Musings on. So it's another albums based one, where this time round I'm talking about albums from 1997 and my memories of those albums and the sort of stuff that was going on in my life at the time. I sort of intermingle. Yeah, very, what's the word? I don't know if frantic's the right word. There was certainly a lot of old bones to dig up in 1997. It was a pretty major transitional period in my life where I went from working at Radio Rentals in the first half of the year to working for a company doing modifications on accounting systems. And they were a value-added reseller. In the middle of all of this, I was also doing Open University. I was doing my postgrad, so I was about halfway through that, and I was going from more project management, quality management and systems implementation units over to more system design and development. So I was shifting over to more things like relational database management, object-oriented programming, knowledge-based engineering, those sort of things. So it was a gradual shift. So I was doing that in my own time alongside work. But because I'd gone from working at one place where I'd worked for about 4 years to working this new job, which was a startup, I had to go away on training as well. So I spent most of the second half of 1997 learning the system, going up to a campus somewhere between, I think it was Coventry and Warwick University. So somewhere in that area there was a training campus, and it was run by a Danish software development company who developed accounting software in partnership with IBM, who handled the marketing. And we used to have to go up to their people that were working on this product, which at that point was just me and my boss, because we were working as a startup underneath another company, which was fairly small as well. And so we used to have to go up and take accreditations in the software, something called Concord XAL. So for the 6 months at the end of 1997, I was up and down to that training campus fairly regularly. Used to go up for a week here. So I did 3 accreditations, which were each a week long, over the course of, I think, 6 months here and there, and then a couple of days here and there on special modules as well. So they were like 2-day, 1-day courses. And then I had to do a via voice course at some point. So it sat down with one of the assessors, tutors, because the firm that I worked for had rushed me through, and I was doing, 6 months of accreditation in supposedly talking to the accreditor there. You're really supposed to spend 18 months to a year doing the 3 things. So like do the first one 6 months, do the second one 6 months, and then 6 months to a year, and then do the third final one. So when I came to do the third and final one, didn't do so well, had to go back and sit down with the examiner, and we went through and I passed through a sort of 1-to-1 exam. So yeah, it's a pretty busy year in terms of changing jobs, doing postgraduate study and doing additional accreditations. So let's just look here. I've had this on the screen while I've been doing that, so you can just peruse what were the best-selling albums from the period 96 to 97. Now bear in mind, some of these albums wouldn't have necessarily come out in 97. They might have come out the previous year. But I think already, we can recognise some classics here. Certain ones that, it's funny, I didn't really listen to this album until this week. But I certainly remember this album very well, this album, and of course, OK Computer. And as I always do, I'm going to feature albums first of all, where I listen to them against the timeline of 97. So I listened to them literally when they came out, and they're still favourites. There is one exception, but I want to talk about that first because it is really an important album for me, even though I didn't listen to it in '97, but it's gone on to be one of my all-time favourite albums for nostalgia reasons. So yeah, so let's, as we go through, we'll no doubt revisit some of these. So yeah, 97 in albums. It's a cool year. I mean, one of the things I noticed here, and maybe it was part of all the turmoil, but there was other things going on as well. At the start of the year, I just picked up Terrorizer magazine, and I'd been poring over 1996's end of year. And having a little bit more disposable income during the course of that year, in the previous job I'd actually been promoted and was leading up the helpline for till support. And then when I went to do this coding job, you know, I had quite a nice increase in my wages as a result of that. So definitely had a bit more disposable income. I was driving around a lot, but I was doing a lot of infilling. So I was buying a lot of stuff that I missed out on from 96, 95, that period. And so I didn't really get round to picking up on a lot of the more heavy albums, more extreme music albums from 97, because I was sort of slowly getting back into that style of music. So you'll see as we go through, it's really noticeable in terms of the albums that I'm picking, in terms of I listened to at the time, and I still like now, are much more pop orientated. A lot of the heavier stuff I'm going to talk about, didn't really listen to until 98, 99, 2000s. So I just want to make that point. But I just want to get this album out the first. So I didn't listen to this in 97, but it is one of my favourite albums, one of my wife's favourite albums. We both own copies of this. It's got Building a Mystery on it. This is awesome if you like close-up mic work, which I think some of you probably do if you listen to this channel. This is a great example of that. So yeah, if you're into the sort of ASMR side of things, there's something about this track. But the whole album's awesome. And so it's got great memories for me later on. So I didn't listen to it in 97, but I started listening to Sarah McLachlan sometime in the 2000s and started infilling. And then when I eventually met the person that went on to be my wife, she was a big Sarah McLachlan fan. So we sort of, bonded over that as well. I've been to see her live as well once. That was really cool. So yeah, I listened to a lot of Sarah McLachlan in the late 2000s. Anyway, I thought I'd get that out of the way first, put a pin in that. So the albums that I did listen to when they came out, and I still absolutely love to this day, and you notice a lot of them are quite poppy in nature. I'll put that out there first of all, because I was at this point transitioning back into extreme music. So 97, picking up a lot of pop albums, indie pop albums, whatever you want to call them. What's this classed as? Pop rock, down-tempo, alternative rock, yeah. Even elements of trip-hop in here. So stuff mainly in that area, listened to as it came out, but slowly starting to infill sort of heavy stuff from, previous years, particularly 96, and then slowly, as I went on to the tail end of the 90s into the 2000s, picking up stuff from this actual year. But at this point, very much into this sort of stuff. There was also a friend I had at work. In fact, everybody was a friend at work. It was that sort of place. So I had a really cool team working for me, who I'd worked with in other capacities in the firm, and they were a really big fan of this album. So whenever I listen to Halo or Black Eyed Boy, really makes me think of them. So lots of singles off of here. Yeah, this album and The Hush I really like. And it's funny, I wasn't really a big Texas fan before that. And this album, yeah. Now the other thing about these is this came out in February, this came out in May, so this was just before or around about when I switched jobs. And these two albums also became a bit of a soundtrack to me driving around the country visiting clients in the second half of 1997, because not only was I a programmer there, I was a systems analyst, and we were doing a little bit of marketing as well. We didn't at that point have a dedicated sales department. Well, that came later, a little bit later. Part of our marketing was handled by IBM. They handled the marketing aspects of this Danish accounting program. And so I've actually been up to IBM's offices in central London. I don't know if they're still there, somewhere near I think it's near the South Bank. Didn't get to meet many programmers, but did meet several marketing people there. It was more of like a marketing meeting. And that was, back in 97 into 98, I think. Probably more 98. But all that travelling around various places, going to courses, going to visit clients. Yeah, I had lots of time on the motorway, so definitely these albums that I'm going to talk about in this first half remind me an awful lot around about that time, because they came out then, I played them then. And yeah, this one, it's got Love Is the Law, Blinded by the Sun. If you're not familiar with the Seahorses, you should check them out. There were a few albums I went through this year that actually weren't on Spotify, and I can't remember if this was one. There was one album by one of the bands that I really wanted to listen to. I don't know if it was this one. It might be it. Yeah, this is not on. I'm just on a. Yeah, this is not on Seahorses. Yeah, this is not. Sorry, this is not on Seahorses. This is not. The album actually isn't on Spotify. But I owned this album, so. Yeah, it's got John Squire on it. And his guitar works all over this. I mean, just everywhere. I'd really like it. But even when, when there's vocals, he's riffing away and doing his guitar lines in the background. Yeah, I really like it. And then this album, this was probably the second, wasn't it? Would be, yeah, because I'm just trying to think. So sometime in 97 I picked up the Paradise Lost album, Like Gods of the Sun. I'm sorry, not Paradise Lost, My Dying Bride, Like Gods of the Sun, which actually came out in 96, so we'll talk about that in the 96 episode when I get around to it. And so I'd started to get interested in this so-called Peaceville 3. So Paradise Lost, My Dying Bride, Anathema. And so I bought this album when it came out and played this a lot. And I really love this album because I could definitely hear influences from Sisters of Mercy and a little bit of Depeche Mode, which I know they sort of got into on later albums. So they sort of went off down this interesting side quest for a number of albums, sort of into synth pop areas and electronic rock, and then sort of back into more gothic metal, gothic rock, and then back into doom again. So they're going from being, part of that Peaceville 3 doom death triumvirate, if that's the right word, and And then, you know, all three of those bands sort of went out into various things during the 90s from their original origins. Now, it's interesting because of the three, I think it was Paradise Lost that had the album out first. Yeah. But I remember 97, 98 just buying so many of these and then filling on the CDs and then literally stopping at this point. And then the only bands I really carried on with consecutive albums after I picked up on them would have been Anathema, probably the next couple of albums, and then My Dying Bride for a succession of albums. They seem to be my favourite. But certainly this album by Paradise Lost is still a favourite of mine now. So I listened to it when it came out, still like listening to it today. So this is an interesting compilation album. I don't always talk about these, but I played this a lot because it had the James Bond theme Moby reversion on it. It had New Dawn Fades as well. Now I think that was also used on, was that used on Heat? Trying to think. Yeah, Moby's cover was used in Heat 95. Just the instrumental version. Yeah. So that's how I knew that. Yeah, so I used to play this a lot when I was driving around. And then this album. So you can see these are going through chronological. So this is October. Yeah. End of the year. Love this album. Yeah. So this has, Torn on it. Although probably for me, at some point, I listened through to this album again the other day. And not of the, a lot of these, well, certainly these albums, I have my awesome epic playlist where a lot of this stuff is on that as well. But I made a point of listening to a lot of stuff specifically this week or just before I was going to record the video. And it's really cool just listening back all the way through to this again. But yeah, I love this album. There's all sorts of alternative pressings of it as well. I think the version on Spotify, because that's the other thing you have to be a little bit careful of. In terms of I had originally listened to a lot on the cassette version. I bought the CD version. It looks like the version on Spotify is this version. Or one of the versions. I don't know if they've got multiple versions of this album on there or not. I don't know if there's a super duper extended version. I don't think so, no. Oh, hang on. Yeah, left of... Did I call this left of centre? I meant to call it left of middle. If I called it left of centre, I apologise. Oh, they've also got... That's interesting. They have the ×2 album on there as well, which has left of middle and White Lily's Island. Yeah, so left of middle. Okay, so let's look at some of the other releases from 97. So, yeah, that's the year that Homework came out. And a lot of this stuff was on the radio, but I just didn't pick the albums up at the time. Come My Fanatics by Electric Wizard. I think I only listened to this in the last few weeks. I've got one or two of their albums on CD, but not this one. It's worth checking out, though. I'd already mentioned White on Blonde. Oh, I'd forgotten about this one. I think I have the... Do I have anything? No. I don't think I've ever owned that, actually. So the Papa Roach debut was out. There's just so much stuff here actually I wanted to listen to in the last few weeks, but it would have meant me pushing back this episode further and further. I've already put out 2 Musings on episodes which are connected to 97 as interims, as a sort of stalling procedure. One on Slow Dive and another one on what was it now? There was an album one I did as well, I think, from that year, as a sort of way of just holding back until I was able to Electric Glide in Blue, I think that was one as well. So I couldn't put this episode off anymore, but there was loads of other stuff I really wanted to listen to, and I'll have to get around to listening to that debut at some time. I remember them, The Divine Comedy. Orchestral pop, interesting album to check out. I'm trying to remember the tracks I'm most familiar with. I wonder if it's Promenade, because that... Yeah, difficult to remember. Maybe Something for the Weekend is the one that I remember most. Oh, this album, Built to Last. So there's quite a few albums here that made the Terrorizer end of year for 97. But that magazine wouldn't have come out until the start of 98. And I wasn't really picking up CDs of more extreme bands in real time at this point, like I was back in the sort of 80s, early 90s. But this was an album that made the list. Built to Last by Sick of It All. I did buy this album when it came out, City by Strapping Young Lad, but it's not one that I've kept listening to over time. Yeah, but good album. So yeah, industrial metal. So I was trying to think, I'd mentioned another band in another episode, I think Kill to This. I was listening to a bit of Strapping Young Lad and a bit of Kill to This. Coal Chamber. This is the whole new metal rabbit hole. I didn't really started to go down a little bit this year, but as a result of Life is Peachy being on the Terrorizer 96 list. So again, like I said, there's a bit of a delay there, me getting into music, and I'm going to talk more about those albums in the episode where they came out, like 96. But Coal Chamber is another band I was aware of, but again, apart from the track Loco, I haven't really listened much to the album. Managed to listen to this album in the lead up to this video. Attack of the Grey Lantern by Manson. Oblivion came out by The Orb. I wasn't really keeping up with The Orb too much, actually. Whiplash by James, which has... what's the track on that? She's a Star. So that was a big hit. The problem, actually, with, for me, like, particularly 97, there was just so much good UK indie music. At a time when I was getting back into more extreme music from the previous year. So that was sort of pulling from my resources. And to me, there was so much good, like pop rock as well, in the charts. So there's all this stuff competing, and I just didn't have the like financial resources to go into everything. And of course, we're in the era of pre-streaming, so you have to go out and sort of buy everything. So yeah, I was amazed when I went through this year, just the amount of stuff I didn't listen to that I would have wanted to listen to, and then when I did get around to listening to some of it in the last month or so, just how good it was. I mean, that album made the the Terrorizer, I think 97 list. I think it was on there. Never got round to listening to it, which is rather sad considering how much Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds I've listened to since then, and I've been to see him live in Toronto in the 2010s. Now this is an interesting album, so I made a point of listening to this through to this several times because there's an interesting connection to this. So the track Stealth Mass in F sharp minor was actually played a lot on the 31st of August 1997 when the regular schedule was suspended on Radio 1, and they just kept playing music. And that's one of those days which I have really strong memories of, because it was actually August so the week after this, the following week on from then, I did go up to a week-long training session in and around Coventry at the company that used to do the training. They had a campus in between Coventry and Warwick University campus, where you used to go for people that, for value-added resellers and anybody that needed to be able to know how to modify the program, would go for training rather than having to go all the way over to Denmark. And so, I was up there fairly regularly. And that week after, I had to go up for training. And so I remember I'm pretty sure this was the Sunday morning. And waking up on Sunday morning, and I'd often leave the radio on because I was having a little bit of trouble sleeping. And I woke up and I thought, that's strange. They're just playing back-to-back music. And in listening to this album for the first time all the way through, because I had Ain't Talking About Dub on, they released 2 versions of that on CD single in February, so I had both of those. But I did, for some reason, didn't go out and buy the album. And so I remember this very sort of mellow synth piece being played at the time, didn't really know what it was. And then, of course, in listening to this album, realised that this was the track on there. So yeah, it was strange times, and it was a odd noise. So I remember waking up and it was just playing in the background, and I was lucid dreaming, and I had to drive up to Coventry later in the day to then stay there overnight and then start on the course the following day. So I started going up the day before. I used to always drive up on the same day for the first part of the course, but after a while I figured, drive up the night before and stay overnight, and it was all paid for by the firm anyway, so they didn't mind you doing that. In fact, I didn't find out till after the first couple of times I'd gone up that that's what my boss used to do all the time. He said, you should go up the night before. So for that one I did, and I got up, spent most of the day with my family in the UK at the time, and we went out shopping to Crawley Shopping Centre, and then I came back and then I had to drive up to Coventry that day. It was very strange, surreal, but listening to this sort of took me back to that week, particularly that weekend. Made me think about those training sessions as well. Hard work. Debut by Savage Garden. Don't think I own this. I'll include links to these because there's going to be loads of stuff that probably people really like from 97 that I'm going to miss out on because there is just so much good stuff. In this room, I didn't listen to the Third and Mortal till a lot later, picked up on their album from the previous year, Painting on Glass from 96, which has gone on to be a real favourite of mine, but I wasn't really keeping up to them. I think their stuff was quite hard to track down in the UK, and it took me actually a while to track down that previous album. It probably took several years before I became aware of them. Maybe not until the 2000s. Mortal Blizzard Beasts, didn't really start listening to them until a little while afterwards. What's the one with... I was going to say, what's the one with winter in it? They've probably got all of their stuff has got winter in it. At the Heart of Winter, 99. I did buy that when it came out. I've got the nice like box with the photo shoot that they did at the time. Okay. Life or Death, Notorious B.I.G. came out. 16 days after his murder. I have this album, but didn't buy it till a bit later. Didn't really step on to Machine Head until The Burning Red, which I think I've spoken about, didn't I? How I got into Machine Head. So I won't say too much in case I contradict myself. Aquarium by Aqua. That had Barbie Girl. Yeah, so when we were up in... Yeah, it's one thing that sticks in my mind. When we were up in Coventry doing training, either me on my own or with my boss or other staff members, one of the trainers up there was just obsessed by this single. Because, surprise, surprise, they're a Danish band. And he just kept singing it all the time. Yeah. I got fond memories of, even though the learning, the stuff we learned was pretty hard work, catering was really good. And funny things you remember, they had a really cool drinks machine. Like I was used to really bad machines that had sort of made coffee and tea. Well, this was the first time I'd seen a machine with the pods, back when the pods were square. I don't know if anybody ever went on training when they first started turning up. And so that there was pretty good quality drinks out of them. And I remember the hot chocolate being really nice, actually. And then we used to have, I think, pastries for the morning break. And then we'd go out for lunchtime, which would all be paid for as part of the course. And there was a local pub I think it was called the Varsity, which was actually where all the students from the university would often go, and they had these curly fries. So we used to go there with a couple of the trainers sometimes, and then they'd mix it up a bit. Sometimes we'd go there. Sometimes we'd have like on-site catering, and just sit down and have a chat for an hour. So yeah, it was good. And then we'd have, I think, something like a break in the afternoon and probably more pastries. And then. So yeah, it's quite a good, that side of things were great, like staying in these really nice hotels, having really cool, like all you can eat buffet breakfasts in the morning, and then, like, 2 breaks and a lunch break. It's probably the most amount of breaks I've ever had and good food I've ever had in a single hit, apart from if I've travelled somewhere. Yeah. Do your own homework. I never got around to listen. Yeah, I was going to listen to this as well before I did this episode, but I didn't, because I'm more familiar with Exit Planet Dust and what was the? Yeah, definitely this one. I'm more familiar with. I mean, there was so much really good, like Big B electric, this is the trouble with 97. I tried to spend a bit of time checking out Big Beat stuff as well, and I spoke a lot about it actually when I did the episode I've done a separate episode on Electrical Light in Blue, which also is going out before you watch this episode. So specifically about bands around that time. This is a cool album. I didn't buy it until several years later. I think I've told the story where the first 2 CDs I bought off of Amazon, someone gave me an Amazon gift voucher, and I had to sign up to Amazon to actually spend it. I wasn't a member of Amazon, so it would have been sometime in the 2000s probably. I remember buying this, and is it Under the Running Board by Dillinger Escape Plan? Because they'd come up on previous years' Terrorizer lists, and I hadn't got around to buying them. First Within Temptation album came out now. I didn't get into them until 2000s. In fact, let me see if I can... Yeah, Mother Earth. I think it was a bit delayed. 2001 it came out. I didn't really get into them until I saw them on cable or satellite a lot later in the 2000s. Yeah, this is a good album, Ultra. It's got Barrel of Gun, It's No Good, Home, Useless. Good album. Yep, trip hoppy. Quite a bit of guitar was slowly sneaking in on their stuff, and a lot of people don't realise Martin Gould's a pretty good guitarist, actually. Yeah. So he's definitely trying to introduce more sort of guitar stuff into the sound. And I think when I saw 101, there was one of the tracks on there where he plays guitar. At least one of them. The 101 live thing. This is a Canadian band who I've never got round to listening to, but I always just remember this album cover at the time. Or CD cover. In It for the Money by Supergrass. So was that their second album? I have that album, but I don't think I have In It for the Money, and didn't manage to get around to listening to it. Yeah, there's quite a number of Britpop bands that I'd gone off the boil a bit by now, so I didn't listen to them. First full album by Ataris, didn't get into them until a lot later. So Long Astoria, yeah. What else we got? Like I said, I'm probably inadvertently skipping over loads of stuff here, but American Psycho by the Misfits, I think I picked up on them quite a bit later. I don't know when Famous Monsters came out, but yeah, around that time. Feeder, another album. Yeah, just completely missed out on them. I can't even remember what was the first Feeder album I listened to. Oh, Echo Park. Yeah, didn't buy that until I bought it sort of retrospectively. Colour and the Shape, bought that retrospectively several years later. I do have that album because I was a big fan of the original album. I didn't listen to it a lot. I think I tend to find that with remix albums. There were a couple of remix albums I think out around that time of albums that I did really like, but I didn't end up listening to the remix album that much. Oh yeah, this one. So this one I never felt compelled to buy because I had a friend that used to play it all the time. So I ended up listening to it that way. So I think I've said that before. Sometimes there's albums that I've heard a lot the year they came out, but I never bought them. They were just either on the radio a lot. I bought this album as well, but not till a little bit later. I was doing one of those things where I was going through systematically, like alphabetically UK bands that I'd missed out on. So yeah, I hit Acrimony and bought this album, but it wasn't in '97. Was that that came out then, but I didn't buy that till later. There was quite a good Osric Tentacles album. Accident Birth by Bruce Dickinson. Didn't really listen to any of his stuff until Chemical Wedding. There's a compilation by Sepultura called Blood Rooted, which is B-sides. And I think it was 96 into 97 where I did pick up Roots Bloody Roots, pretty sure. Inside the Torn Apart by Napalm Death. The Gathering, Nighttime Birds. I think I mentioned in a 98 episode, this is my favourite album by them, but to be honest I haven't listened to much outside of that and didn't get around in the last month or so to listen to that album. Didn't pick up on this at the time. This was pretty big. I keep meaning to go through a lot more space rock because I really like Hawkwind, I really like early UFO, and there's so many genres of music that I just haven't really properly explored. There's Do It Yourself. We've got Dude Ranch, which is the second album by Blink 182. Probably like a lot of people, didn't get into them until Enema of the State, but I did buy that album when it came out. Demonic by Testament. I haven't played guitars on that. Pretty sure what was his name now? Guy that played in Death and Obituary for a short period of time. Somebody Murphy. James Murphy? Yeah, I can't remember what Testament album James Murphy played on. Glory to the Brave by Hammerfall. I remember that coming out. I didn't pick it up didn't really get into them until a little bit later. Morning Brides by Opeth. Yeah, there's a lot of bands here that were making inroads that year, but I just wasn't locked into them or didn't have the money to buy them. And then really following years. So for Opeth, wasn't until Still Life. But then I backfilled, their earlier stuff. Fall of the Land by The Prodigy, that was really big that year. Yeah, I didn't listen to Limp Bizkit till a lot later. I did buy this album, I didn't like it, but I didn't buy it till several years. I was just curious as to what it was like. Outcomes to the Welkin at Dusk. I did listen to this again recently. It's a good album, but I didn't buy it until following year, really. There's 1 Second by Paradise Lost. Like I said, really cool album. So I just looking off to the side here. The reason why I stopped is I was looking at I had the Sarah McLachlan album playing in the background while I'm recording this, just as a chill out thing. That's surfacing, and of course it's done that thing where it's got to the end of the surfacing, and it's now playing tracks off of Fumbling Towards Ecstasy, which is another favourite of mine. It's track Possession. That's a weird song, actually, Possession, if you look into the lyrics. Adam and Eve by Catherine Wheel. I did buy that when it came out, but I didn't really keep up. I think the problem is there's one track on there that I really like, but the rest of the album not so much. How many albums deep were they in by then? 5th studio album. Yeah, their sounds changed quite a bit over the years. Oh, this album. Debut album came out then. Didn't listen to it till years later. Friend of mine from way back, I used to go to school with, was a couple of years above me at school, who I sort of kept in touch with, really, because some other friends that I kept in touch with, he was also friends with. And so when I sort of hung out with them, I'd bump into him again. And I remember him going on about them at the time. He went to see them live in London, I think, yeah. And I didn't really check them out until a little later. I wish I had checked them out sooner. Yeah, it took me a while to really even know or get into post-rock. Not really until Explosions in the Sky, and a lot later after they came out. I don't know what Rammstein album we're up to by then, second album. I suppose the big one in the UK for them was Mutter. And the fact that, was it, I can't remember how you say it, Few, or yeah, Fire, or whatever it is, was on the Triple X soundtrack from that next album. Oh, Shaggy. Yeah, I saw him, that was cool. I saw him, was it last year, I think? Yeah, I think last year. That was really good. Tub Thumper by Chumbawamba, which has tub thumping on it. Yes, I can remember when they were, anarcho punk band. Yeah, it's interesting in that period as well, a number of bands like, I don't know, maturing's the right word, but yeah, it was seeing their development over time. And then again, all this stuff like these debut albums by bands that boiled up to the surface just after the sort of peak of Britpop in sort of 96 into 97. So there was other bands coming through, like bands like Travis. And we got Vegas by Crystal Method. They're a band that's worth checking out. You got Silence by Incubus. I can't remember what album I checked out by Incubus. Yeah, that one. Yeah, so a little bit later. Marching Already was the third. So Ocean Colour Scene were pretty far in by then. Yeah, I always think of them as a sort of parallel development with, Oasis and other Britpop bands around that time, like Blur. So yeah, there were several albums in by this time. I don't know if I've ever listened to this. In the early days of when I was working for myself, I had a client who I used to go and do work for on a Saturday morning. It was the only time he was available, and I sort of trained him over successive weeks in how to use a computer. And I think he'd previously been quite high up in some supermarket chain, and there was some big, C-level purge, I suppose, where they just got rid of the C-suite people, CEO or whatever seat, and he found himself sort of in a time when the industry was sort of tightening their belt, a bit stuck. And up to that, he'd never really used a computer. He had an assistant that did all of that. And he found himself back, I think, working for another supermarket chain at the sort of operational level as a supermarket manager, and then had to start using electronic tills and stuff like that. So I used to go around on a Saturday morning and do an hour sort of introductory IT training. And this would have been, I think he was one of my earliest clients, like 98, 99, so a little bit later. But I can remember he kept on about this album all the time, because it was like a Saturday morning, and I didn't usually work on a Saturday, unless it was of an emergency with a client. So we used to sort of hang out afterwards, which happened with a lot of clients at his place. And it was nice. His family would be hanging around, and we just chat about life and stuff, and have a cup of tea, and just talk about work life. And because I been working for quite a while there, different firms, and he had a lot of work experience and life experience, and so it was nice to sort of sit down, and occasionally his like teenage son would come in, and we just sort of sit there like drinking tea after the session with the meter off, and talk about music and stuff like that. So that was really cool. So it just made me suddenly think about that, and I got a big smile forming on my face. I often wonder, like, I wonder what he's doing now. Whether he sort of like clambered his way up, back up the greasy pole. Oh, Stereo Lab. Yeah, I tend to forget about them. There's all these really fascinating bands around. Yeah, that's a cool album. Silence and Static by the Sundays. But I didn't get into them a lot later, and I've only ever listened to this on Spotify. So yeah, second Portishead album. I think I'll talk more about Portishead when I come to do the episode about where the year that Dummy was released. But I did a lot of infilling of their albums later on with them, and got particularly interested in the DVD they did. Live DVD. Yeah, Life Through a Lens was out. So that was a debut album. Yeah, so that was big that year. Although I seem to remember, didn't it take quite a while for him to have some single success, was it? These sort of did okay-ish, and then he released Angels, and it just exploded. I think something like that. Slow to Take Off. Yeah. Yeah, that was it. What were KMFDM up to by then? 9th album. Wow. Yeah, so a lot of industrial bands hovering around at this time as well. I mean, industrial was fairly well developed by this point, seeing as it has its origins in, 70s. That's Robin Gristle. But yeah, there's a lot of industrial metal bands around. Paying the Dues by the Helicopters, second album. Some of their stuff can be a bit tricky to track down on Spotify, actually. I don't know whether this is, but Aphex Twin, Come to Daddy, that's a pretty disturbing video. I saw an interesting documentary about the relationship between this band and... I'm trying to think of the name of the other band now. Sort of fractious relationship between the two lead singers of the band. And I'm trying to remember the name of the documentary. Yeah, Dig. Yeah, if you've never seen this, check it out. That's right, Dandy Warhols. Dandy Warhols. Cool. Yep, I Like to School, Moby, Pleased to Meet You by Sleeper. I can't remember what Sleeper album I had. Was it that one? Or no, Smart, the one with the they're the astronauts on it. But good band to check out. That's interesting if you've never checked out Jazz Coleman's stuff. So this is an album he did, an instrumental album inspired by Led Zeppelin songs. Yeah, I've never really checked that out, but he's like a composer in his own right. Yeah. Interesting character. Talk on Corners. I have some weird version of this, I think. Yeah, the special edition one. So one that came out a lot later. Jugulator by Judas Priest. I actually didn't buy this when it came out. Probably not till the following year. Because it made the Spotify end of year for 97. So I bought it sometime in 98. And that's when I started getting back into the band again. And went to see both the Ripper Owens fronted Judas Priest and Rob Halford's band Halford in the 2000s. Both great gigs. And both of them at the London Astoria, actually. One was at the LA2 and one was at the main London Astoria. But of course that's all gone now. That got knocked down, dug into when they did the, this big stuff across London. I can't remember what they call it now. I think it's connected something to do with the Elizabeth line, that sort of stuff. I think there's some connection there. To do with the London Underground, and they had to demolish the London Astoria to put in all the underground stuff. Oh, what are we on to with AFI? Third album. Yeah, so they were quite far in album-wise by then, but didn't pick up on them until Black Sails, 99, sometime 2000s. Oh, the Breed to Breathe EP by Napalm Death. Yes, a classic track. In Flames. Fairly big at that point. I was trying to think of the other one, the other band out at that time as well. Where did I get into them? Around the time of Colony, Clay Mann era, more, I think. Yeah, the band I was trying to think of was Dark Tranquillity. They had an album out this year, which is really good. Debut album by the All Saints came out this year. Reload by Metallica. Never listened to that, actually. Left of Middle. I think Left of Centre, isn't that? That other female singer, his name escapes me. Oh, Sixpence None the Richer. What did that have on it? Oh, that's it, Kiss Me. Yeah, that was a big hit. Sounds of Decay by Catatonia, that's their third EP. Didn't get into them until, yeah, so probably I picked up Brave Murder Day around 97, 98, because it had been on the 96 Terrorizer list. So no doubt we'll talk a bit more about them when I come to do the 96 year episode. Wow. Is that the Donna's first album? It is. Okay, let me just quickly roll down the heavy metal stuff. So Arcturus was the first one I sort of really remember on this list. Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember this album. So there's quite a few here that I bought in subsequent years. Yeah, Mind's Eye, Dark Tranquillity, really cool album. Round the Fur, Deftones. This I don't know about that year. What else we got? Yeah, I mentioned these ones. This one was a big album, but I didn't buy it till the following year. What else we got? Anything else here that springs out that I haven't mentioned? Oh yeah, I did go and see Orange Goblin in the 2000s. I can't remember what album came out, but they were kicking around at this point. What was the album by them that I bought? I think it was a bit later, wasn't it? I seem to remember. Dawn of Victory, yeah. That's a good album. Solifold's Linear Scaffold. In fact, there were a couple of like avant-garde albums. I mean, we saw the Arcturus one, but that's another one. Okay, so highest grossing films that year: Full Monty, Men in Black, Jurassic Park, The Lost World. Second one, that is 101 Dalmatians. That's the live action one. Bean was out. Star Wars Special Edition. So yeah, this was the year that all the Star Wars films got the special edition treatment. Batman and Robin was out. Vita Ransom, The English Patient. So if you sort of break that down in the UK and sort of see when they were like #1 films. Now, of course, some of these would have been released the previous year. We got Vita Ransom, Mars Attacks, Jerry Maguire. So then there's this block of these special editions. And I can remember when I was at Radio Rentals, still at that point, one of my co-workers, one of the guys that was actually working for me, because this period was when I was the team leader on the support desk for the tills, and I think watched all. I don't know if he'd watched these back to back, but I remember he'd gone over to one of the cinemas and they'd rolled them out in one of the really nice screens with the big seats and the really good sound, and he'd like managed to get hold of some tickets for like the whatever they call it, the pre-screenings, and had watched them. Yeah. No, Absolute Power, Con Air, The Fifth Element, Batman and Robin. Yeah. Okay, Face Off. Yeah, I saw that years later. Alien Resurrection came out that year, but I don't think I saw it at the cinema. I think I saw Tomorrow Never Dies at the cinema. Didn't see Spice World though. And then the US ones. Did I just accidentally repeat that? So yeah, that was the UK highest grossing. This is the US highest grossing. Titanic, Men in Black, Lost World, Liar Liar, so on. And then in the US, the #1s. So Michael, The Relic, Beverly Hills Ninja, Jerry Maguire. Again, this sort of special edition block. Liar Liar, Anaconda. I saw that, but I can't remember where. I don't think I saw Fifth Element at the cinema. I have watched it. I do like that film. Fire Down Below. Why do I know that? Oh, it's a Steven Seagal film. Okay. Yeah, I Know What You Did Last Summer. Scream 2, and then Titanic. Wow. What a year. So there we have it. Thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in a future episode.